Good morning. Today on Spotlight, inside Michigan's February 27th presidential primary election. Why is it important? And what do you need to know before casting your ballot? We'll get wisdom and insight from Bill Ballinger, the founder and editor of the Ballinger Report. And later on our Sunday morning program, Britney Kellum and Rebecca Zatella will discuss the upcoming public hearings being convened by the Michigan Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission. It's your opportunity to have an input. It's Sunday, February the 18th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. Bill Ballinger, thanks for joining me today on Spotlight. February 27th, the Michigan presidential primary. A lot of people are trying to figure out what the heck to do and if they should vote or not. I figured there's no better person to go to than the man that Charlie Kane, the late Charlie Kane, dubbed as the crown prince of political pundits. You remember that, don't you?
Yeah, I don't know if I still live up to that billing or not, but thank you very much.
In my eyes, you do. So, Bill, voters are going to see on this Michigan presidential primary ballot 7 candidates on the Republican side and 3 candidates on the Democratic side, even though some of those candidates, at least on the Republican side, have already dropped out of the race and thrown their endorsement to former President Trump. Is this going to be extremely confusing for the voters?
Among the Republicans, yeah. There are even a couple of people on there that nobody's ever heard of, okay? Like Ryan Binkley. Who is that? But for most people, what they're really interested in is the people whose names have been in the news the last few months. Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis, and Ramaswamy is going to be on the ballot too, as one of the 7. So even though everybody has dropped out at this point or is unknown to the voting public, except Trump and Haley, they're all on the ballot. And so that's going to be confusing. On the Democratic side, it's basically Joe Biden against, whoever might be there, but they're non-factors at this point. So for the Democrats, this is a big deal because all of their delegates from Michigan to their national convention this summer are going to be picked on February 27th in the Democratic primary. But that's not the case, Chuck, with the Republicans. In fact, only 16 delegates are going to come out of this February 27th Republican primary. The other 39, there are a total of 55 delegates for the Republicans from Michigan this summer, they're going to be picked on March 2nd in conventions, 13 separate conventions, where it's basically closed to everybody but Republican Party members.
And how much of a factor will play into this the fact that there has been complete chaos within the Michigan GOP? A lot of people are trying to still say, who's our chair? Is it Pete Hoekstra or is it Ms. Karamo? Granted that the National Republican Party has weighed in on this, but there's still a lot of dissension, correct?
There is a lot of dissension, and I guess the real question is Christina Karamo going to turn over the keys to whatever headquarters the Republicans might have right now? Maybe it's only a post office box in Grand Rapids, but is she going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming by law enforcement out of office? Or will she finally concede that Pete Hoekstra is in fact the Republican Party chairman as chosen by the Republican National Committee? And for that matter, Donald Trump has endorsed Hoekstra also.
Do you see any real surprises coming in this primary compared to some of the past ones that we've had in history? Of course, I think back to 1988 with Jesse Jackson, or do you figure that Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump are going to run away with this here in Michigan?
The latter, Chuck. I think you've got it right. I don't think there's any surprise about the result. It's going to be Donald Trump winning on the Republican side, both in the primary on February 27th and in the conventions on March 2nd. And it's going to be Joe Biden winning everything on February 27th. It's not going to be like a lot of the primaries we've had in the past where there have been big upsets. Remember, Bernie Sanders beat Hillary Clinton in Michigan in 2016. And John McCain beat George W. Bush in 2000 in the Republican primary in Michigan. We're not going to have anything like that this year.
Are people going to say it was really good that Michigan was early this time, or we need to go back to the old times?
I don't think people are really going to care that much or know that much about the process. That Michigan is, in fact, early in the process this year, February 27th for a primary. We could have a little more influence in that only a week after our primary, we're going to have so-called Super Tuesday. So whoever wins in Michigan, and it's going to be Biden and Trump, they can basically claim, you know, we've got this nomination sewed up. Get on the bandwagon now, other people, and let's look forward to the national convention this summer. The nominations seem to be sewed up earlier than ever this time, despite the fact that 70% of the American population is unhappy that these are the two nominees that they're going to be faced with in November.
Okay, we're going to take a quick little pause for the cause. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about what impact ballot proposals may or may not have come November 5th. We'll be right back with Bill Ballinger. Stay with us. Talking to Bill Ballinger, founder and editor of the Ballinger Report. He's in Flint today. Bill, just for clarification so people understand, if they vote in the Michigan presidential primary, they have to go in and they have to declare which party affiliation they are with, correct?
Yeah, to get a presidential primary ballot, yeah, they have to do that, yeah.
Okay. Do you figure that there'll be much switching and Democrats voting for Republicans, Republicans voting for Democrats? We've seen that in some past years where each side has tried to create a little havoc for the other side.
I don't think there's going to be that much of it this year. And even if there is, it's not going to affect the final result. It's going to be Trump for the Republicans and Biden for the Democrats, period.
Okay. Ballot proposals, what do we know now will be on the November ballot and what might be coming down the pipe that's not locked in stone yet?
What we know now is we don't know how many ballot proposals are going to be on the November 5th general election ballot. There are a bunch of proposals out there in the process of getting signatures on petitions to get on the ballot. I mean, everything from an animal abuse registry, that is one possibility. Another one is called Axe the Tax, which is an attempt to abolish all property taxes in Michigan. Fair wage, 15% minimum wage, that is an attempt. And by the way, there are also attempts by various groups opposing these proposals. They're out there trying to gather signatures. There are about 7 or 8 petition efforts out there, but how many of them qualify for the ballot? Remember, some of these might be constitutional amendments, which require a huge number of signatures, hundreds of thousands. The others would be initiatives or referenda, and they require, quite a few signatures as well. We all know in Michigan, there were a lot of petitions thrown out by the Board of State Canvassers just 2 years ago, guys who wanted to run for governor, and their petitions turned out to be fraudulent. So, I mean, there are all these complicated factors, and we don't know how many are finally going to qualify for the ballot. Like back in 2012, we had 6 on the ballot. I don't know if you remember that. And in 2016, when we had Trump versus Hillary Clinton running for president, we had no ballot proposals. But sometimes these ballot proposals, even if there are only 1 or 2 on the ballot, can have an enormous influence on the outcome of other candidacies on the ballot. For instance, 2022, Proposal 3, which would expand reproductive rights in Michigan and put it in the Constitution. That passed overwhelmingly, about 57 to 43%. And most people think that was a big boost to the Democratic Party because females dramatically supported that, and they were basically affiliated with or leaned toward the Democratic Party, meaning that if they got out there to vote on Proposal 3, they would go right down the line. They'd vote for the Democratic candidate for governor, Gretchen Whitmer, the other Democratic candidates, and so forth. And that's one of the reasons the Democrats swept the board in 2022, and they now control everything in state government.
The comedian Jon Stewart got on television the other day and in talking about the presidential race with Biden versus Trump, he coined it as the Antique Road Show. Now, for you and I who are reaching into that AARP status or have already reached into it, we might take that a little differently. But on a serious note, are we seeing a situation in which whether you're like the Democrats or like the Republican, it's almost age discrimination, and do you see that as a major factor in this presidential race?
Well, it's a major factor, but the fact is the two candidates kind of cancel themselves out, right? I mean, they're both old. Biden is getting more flack for being seemingly slightly demented or a man with a poor memory, as the recent special counsel pointed out. But Donald Trump is only 4 years younger. People may not think of him as being a doddering, senile, old fool, but the point is they're both old. So it would be one thing if one candidate was younger, like Nikki Haley is pointing out, look, I'm just the next generation. I'm much younger, much more mentally alert than Donald Trump, but it doesn't seem to be getting her anywhere in her own party. Trump is thrashing her in the voting booths. So, I mean, we're stuck, I guess, with Biden and Trump unless something cataclysmic happens in the next few months, whether it's for health reasons or federal court conviction reasons, we don't know. But that's where we are. But I think Jon Stewart kind of hit the nail on the head with that title, Antiques Roadshow. Absolutely right.
All right, Bill Ballinger, Michigan's #1 political pundit, thanks so much for joining us today on Spotlight. We'll stay in touch with you. We've got a lot to talk about between now and November the 5th.
Yeah, Chuck, it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, good seeing you, my friend.
Great to see you.
All right, and when Spotlight returns, we'll talk to two of the commissioners on the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission about the hearings that they have coming up. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And welcome back to Spotlight. Joining me now is Britney Kellum. She's a Democrat from the city of Detroit, and she's one of the commissioners. And Rebecca Zatella. She is an independent commissioner on this Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. I've interviewed you both before. It was during the pandemic, so you're up in the little Zoom boxes. It's nice to be able to have you here in studio in person. I'll start with you, Rebecca. There's been so much with this redistricting that's gone back and forth, and lawsuits, and AG versus Benson, and the judges coming in and the court saying, "Oops, you violated the 14th Amendment here." Give folks a quick capsule of where we stand now.
So where we are right now is the commission has redrawn maps for the Detroit area. We've published 10 of those maps for the public, and at this point, we are seeking feedback from the public about which of those 10 maps they prefer.
Okay, good. And what's really in question right now they're looking at is kind of 7 districts for the House of Representatives, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What areas could they stretch? Mainly Southeast Michigan?
Yes, mainly Southeast Michigan. We're looking at Metro Detroit, Detroit proper. We're looking at Hamtramck. We're looking at Highland Park. We're looking at the east side of Detroit. That includes Grosse Pointe, East Point, Harper Woods. So we're really looking to redo and recreate what those districts could look like from the standpoint of including more neighborhoods, more communities of interest, and re-emphasizing the voices that we heard back in 2021.
These are, we think, the final maps. But if they are the final maps, it's time for the public to really weigh in on this, correct?
Yes, we are soliciting public comment. We had a meeting on February 15th, which was this past Thursday, which was virtual, where people could call in and provide their input. We also are holding 2 more public hearings this week. One is going to be on Wednesday, February 21st at the Greater Grace Temple. The second one will be February 22nd, which is Thursday, at Second Ebenezer Church. Both of those will allow people to actually attend in person, or they can also sign up on our michigan.gov/MICRC website, and they can actually submit virtual public comment if they can't attend in person.
Okay. What happens then after the public weighs in?
So after the public weighs in, then the commission will take a look at the maps, right? We will try and figure out, okay, what maps were mentioned more, what areas might need to be tweaked, and we'll make those changes if we deem necessary, which likely we will, because this process we cannot do without Michigan citizens. And after that, after we kind of reassess how the maps are, what changes we want to make, if any, we'll collectively vote as the commission, but with every citizen in mind and all the voices that we've heard. And we'll make a decision on which maps to push forward or submit to the courts to be reevaluated.
Once we approve the maps following public feedback, we will submit it to the court. The court is then going to have a special master evaluate the map, and if assuming it's acceptable, the court would then be able to adopt it. If the court for some reason finds it's not acceptable, they are also having another special master draw an alternative map to offer to the court as well. So there is a possibility that it could ultimately not be adopted, but I think the more public feedback we get, the more likely it makes it that the map drawn by the commission will be adopted.
Okay, very good. We need to take a quick little break. We'll come right back with some more questions to Britney Kellum and Rebecca Zitella. Stay with us. Welcome back to Spotlight. The lawsuits and the legal challenges that were brought on because of all this were mainly brought on by a group that felt as though blacks and their vote had been diluted in this entire process. So I'm curious to know, now that they've won in some respects legally in the courts on this, and the public finally has a chance to really weigh in on this latest stage of the maps, who are you hearing from in terms of community? Who's being really vocal, and who do you want to hear from that maybe you're not hearing enough from? Brittany, you want to take that?
So we need to hear more from the Detroiters. We've heard from
people who live and work.
People
in the
that
city of Detroit.
live and work in the city, people that are maybe dismayed or uninterested in voting, people that feel disenfranchised, disempowered with the process and may not trust, because this is an opportunity where their voices can authentically be heard. So oftentimes people call in, and sometimes they think that we're the city council, or sometimes they think we're politicians, and we are regular people. We are employed, we're people that are parents, that are retired, that are working within the cities in which we live. And I understand deeply, especially being a native Detroiter, how you can look at the commission and say, well, these 2 people are only from kind of the Detroit area. These folks are from the Metro Detroit area. Some of them don't even look like me, so there's no commonality. But I think this is the opportunity where we overcome that and we fight back with our voices and use this chance to tell us and bring us as a commission into their homes to help us draw these maps. We cannot do it. We cannot draw fair
And that's
maps.
the key part of the democratic process.
Absolutely.
Rebecca, are you hearing from communities outside Detroit? And if so, what are they saying?
So we're hearing quite a bit from the same groups that were involved in the initial process have re-engaged. So we're hearing a lot from the Grosse Pointes and St. Clair Shore area. We're hearing a lot from the Arab American community. We're hearing a lot from the LGBTQ community as well. But there does seem to be an absence of voices coming from people who live in Detroit and work in Detroit and have the experiences in Detroit.
Do you feel like we've made progress and the process is better now than it was before? Either one.
I don't think there's any question that the process is better now than it was before. There's certainly always tweaks and room for improvement, but I think it's a vastly different process, and it's better, and it's one that other states are looking at adopting as well, which I think is a positive change.
Mm-hmm. But it's not a perfect process?
It's not. I think no process is perfect. I think the process of us getting along and not getting along, duking it out and then mending fences but still being professional, I think all of that is part of the exercise. That is what democracy looks like. You're not going to always agree. You're not going to always see eye to eye, but I think during the process since 2021, right, we've had the opportunity to learn from each other as people, but also in our fight to use our own individual voices as commissioners and listen to the public. We've done this extraordinary job of being able to showcase what it's like to bring community into this space, what it's like to share stories and learn and potentially, do a good job at drawing these maps. I think that part of it, the process, is just as important as us doing right by the citizens of Michigan.
All right. We will put information on the screen about when these various hearings are coming up, and they can always go to your website and get more information. And real quick final question, Rebecca, once you get through this with the House districts, some months down the line, are we going to have to go through this with the Senate districts?
We are also going to be redrawing the Senate districts in the Detroit area as well.
All right, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right, Rebecca Zatella, thank you so much for coming in. Britney Kellum, thank you so much for coming in. And we want to thank you. I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the spotlight. We hope you have a great week.